Hello, everyone. My name is Rosemary Pierce, and I'm here with compliments of Prairie Naturals and Optimum Health to present to you the power of positive aging, how to live a healthy life at any age, and really what age is all about. It is changing as we speak. First of all, people think of aging as being chronological, which would mean that one year follows after another, sort of following the calendar. But that's really not true aging. True aging is based on what we call now biological aging, and it is at different rates for individuals. Somebody 40 could look like and be measured by their biological age as 60, and it could be reversed. Somebody 60 could be biologically the same as what we would consider 40. And it's also called bioaging. So just a minute. It's not giving me. Sorry about that. It's just more people are coming in and I got a different kind of message. So this ability to age at different rates is controllable. We can slow it down, and it looks like we can even reverse it. It's also this bioaging or biological aging is an indicator of changes in our body. And these changes are influenced by a series of factors. And some of these new fancy ways of affecting aging might not be available to us yet, though they're coming. But there are some really simple things that are right at the very base of what keeps our cells and therefore our bodies young. And the first one is our nutritional intake and our ability to absorb nutrient. So we're going to look at nutrient absorption and nutrient intake and what's important in there. Also, though I don't deal with it in this talk, when we eat, keeping our window of eating small, at least 8 hours, and with the 24 hours and the 16 hours off, so only eating within an 8 hour or less window is also important in this process. But it's a whole talk on its own. So we're going to look more into what else we need, which is adequate alkaline minerals and buffers, and proper balance between our antioxidants and free radicals. Of course, free radical damage is involved in this, but and we need antioxidants, but we can't also overdo the antioxidants. So they have to be sort of balanced between each other. But we're going to look at different antioxidants and what they can do. Also, exposure to stressors. Two of the biggest ones for aging really is alcohol, smoking, and then toxins. So that would be anything in our air, water, or food. Physical activity and exercise. Although you can over-exercise and cause issues, keeping moving and certain types of exercise, like resistant exercise, they're starting to show is quite valuable for keeping us young as well. And we've always known that to an extent, but then look at the performance athletes that are into bodybuilding, and their age is less because that's on the overdone side. And then there's the genetics, which really, looking at studies in the UK and Denmark on twins, long-term studies, it's showing that it's only between 20 and 30% related to our genes, and the rest of it is what's going on in our cellular changes, which are determined by our behavior, our social experience, and all of the above. So it's a bit of a complex process, though we can take a look at some different factors. So I've got a health quiz here that will just be a nice way of taking a look at whether you're experiencing, and of course this is like as you're going through your decades, do you have lower energy than you used to? This is a huge one, and one that can be reversed. I've been working with individuals and able to really tackle this one quite nicely, and I'll explain why later. Also, do you find multitasking more difficult than you used to, or you have more brain fog? What about your digestion? Do you have more gas, bloating, or find that you can't eat a large meal anymore? You can't eat a whole meal the way you used to, especially later at night. What about changes in your vision? Do you need reading glasses now? Are you holding, the book way out there? Or the other way it affects us is poor night vision, can't handle those bright lights. Or then there's, and this isn't just for men, but also for women, is the frequent urination, and especially getting up at night, because I'm going to ask you to check your pH, and if you're getting up at night a couple times, it doesn't make it as easy. So I often hear that both women and men are up at least a couple times at night. Are you experiencing your hair thinning or split nails? And do you notice less muscle strength or muscle mass? So loss of muscle. So if you're saying yes to 2 or more of these changes, just let's go and see if you're doing any of these things that can mitigate that. Exercising at least 20 or 30 minutes a day, doing more than 5,000 steps. Are you eating a nutrient-dense, alkaline-rich diet? I'm really going to emphasize alkaline-rich, because if it is, it's high in fruits, especially vegetables. Are you eating the colorful fruits and vegetables where the polyphenols are found in those dark colors? And polyphenols play a big role in keeping our cells young. And it's sleep. Sleep is definitely a really important part, and it's usually around 7 hours or more at night. It can vary for people depending on how they set up their cycle. What seems to be important is to have a regular cycle and make sure you get morning light. And that there's just all kinds of science coming out about that and the health of our mitochondria. Do you take prescription medications regularly? One of my specialties is drugs that deplete nutrients, and you could have extra nutrient loss if you're on medication that you have to compensate for. Do you have a healthy social network? We are social beings. We need connections to each other, and making sure that those are in your life keep life expectancy longer. Do you read or find ways to exercise your brain? This to me is just such an amazing area, because now turning 73, I'm as excited about research as I have been my whole career. So it's quite wonderful to keep expanding. 2 last areas that you certainly might not have thought about is, are you producing adequate stomach acid? Checking whether you've got stomach acid enough to set off your whole digestive process is really important. On my website, there's a couple of tests underneath the article section, and you'll see my website come up at the end here, that you can do. I especially recommend the sodium bicarbonate test, baking soda test. And also check your morning pH with pH paper. At Optimum Health, you should be able to buy pH paper. This is a typical roll. Take off a little bit of this and check your urine first thing in the morning. And there's information on my website on that if you're really interested. Alkaline diet and alkalinity is a specialty of mine, and that's where we're going to go right now, is to look at how being too acid or acidosis can affect our aging. To me, this is at the very base. We could do all of the healthy things that we need to do, or take the age supplements that help us age healthily and reduce our age. But if we do not have an alkaline internal body fluid, then we can't run most of these enzymes that it takes without the minerals and without this alkaline fluid that's going out and in of our cells, removing toxins and putting in oxygen and the nutrients that we need. So our pH in our blood is about 7.4. It has a little bit of a range, but it has to be slightly alkaline. And when you test the urine, it's a reflection of whether you have enough alkaline minerals in your body. So after 40, it gets harder to do this. And the reason for that is that if we've been eating acid-forming foods and doing acidy things all of our life, so that we have a lot of acids that our kidneys have to remove and buffer, it decreases our kidney function. Those acids it's like corrosion, and the body becomes progressively more acid with less ability for the kidneys to function properly. So keeping our body in a slightly always more alkaline state is really important, and factors that can contribute to this, the key ones, there are lots. But if I was to distill it down, it's eating acid-forming foods. The most acid-forming foods are animal proteins. Not saying animal proteins are bad for us. If we eat high-quality, grass-fed, organic meats, they're good. It's the quantity. So you want to have your alkaline-forming foods at a much higher quantity. And actually, usually I have in here, I believe it was in here, a link to my alkaline forming food chart. It's not here right now, but it is also on my website under that pH balance section if somebody's interested. So the foods that cause the most issues are and it's in high quantities. Not that you want to totally ignore them, but you want to have a lower amount of protein, and especially animal protein, dairy and grains, as well as all fried foods, alcohol, and sugar. Basically, it's the processed, devitalized foods, packaged foods that do not contribute to helping your body be nicely alkaline. And it's also what Health Canada lets us know this, that most of us are potassium and magnesium deficient. These are our key alkaline minerals. So most people are not getting them in foods, and they're not consuming them in their supplementation enough. Another factor would be stress. Shuts down digestion. We excrete magnesium and potassium too quickly. And if we have poor digestion just in general, then what's going to happen is we're not going to be able to absorb those nutrients. So we're going to look at how to improve our digestion. Also, to neutralize acids, if we're not neutralizing these acids, if we don't have enough alkaline minerals, the stores in the body are very low. They have to keep coming in from the diet. And if they're not, then the body has to find them somewhere, and it'll go to bones, which leads to low bone density and osteoporosis. It can pull them from joints and connective tissue. That affects the quality of the skin, nails, hair, and joints. It can pull them from muscle or organ tissue, which decreases the organ function, muscle loss, teeth. This is what's creating the cracks in the teeth, or little holes and sensitivities, unless of course you've had a blow to the mouth. So in general, this is what happens when there are not enough alkaline minerals. Okay, here it is. I didn't forget it. Here it is. Here is the link. I also have that alkaline forming food chart of mine on the Prairie website, so you can get to it through this link. What I want to do is to look at 8 important benefits of an alkaline diet and lifestyle. So the lifestyle would mean compensate for the stress, don't eat when you're under stress, and make sure that you have about 75% of your intaking foods and liquids coming from an alkaline forming source. So when you do that, what you have is you have an increase in your body's mineral content, so you're going to have better bone density. Also, the alkaline diet helps to build proteins and collagen, so that's going to improve the skin, nails, and hair. It's going to preserve the muscle mass with less age-related muscle loss. Both men and women can be affected by that. So it's also an alkaline diet supports the kidney and liver health and promotes detoxification. And it's also encouraging a healthy microbiome, stomach acid production, because if our internal pH is properly alkaline, our stomach can then be properly acidic. That's where we need the acid, is inside the stomach. It cannot happen if your body does not have enough alkaline buffers and minerals. So often people will have digestive issues and acid reflux, so it helps with those. Promotes cardiac health. The key, very first thing for people who have high blood pressure and want that blood pressure to be low, is to top off your magnesium. Most people will need magnesium. It also increases oxygen to the brain, so the brain gets more oxygen, and which it's a huge consumer of oxygen, creating mental clarity and less fog. And then the last but not least is, if our pH is out of balance, if we're too acidic, our lymphatic system clogs and congests. So if you want to increase lymphatic drainage, which is the first way in which we deal with toxins and viruses, and therefore there would be less colds and flu. You often see this in children. Look how mucousy they get, because they have a more active lymphatic system trying to cleanse the body, and that's why we see the runny noses. Okay, let's go take a look at one way to add to your alkaline diet is with an alkalizing drink. And this is something that I created for Prairie. And it initially was a recipe that I made to use as the base of putting green powders together, because greens and lemon go very well together. But when I made it into a drink, I could add more alkaline minerals in the form of the citrate minerals, potassium, magnesium, calcium, and sodium last. Also a little bit of the trace mineral magnesium. These 4 first ones are also electrolytes, so it really also works as electrolyte replacement as long as you add more salt, because when you're losing your electrolytes through heavy perspiration, you need even more salt. So it has the juice of half an organic compliant lemon and also an ounce of aloe vera juice. So when you take Morning Rise and Shine as your alkalizing agent, it's really this pure lemon juice that's the super alkalizer, along with, of course, the minerals that are found in aloe and the lemon and the added minerals. But it's the citric acid this natural high citric acid that acts as a cleanser. It supports the health of the kidney. It also reduces kidney stone formation and other oxalate deposits. Matter of fact, if somebody has a propensity towards depositing oxalates or calcium oxalate kidney stones, 2 servings of Morning Rise and Shine morning and midday with copious amounts of water really supports not forming new kidney stones. And of course, the aloe vera is really known to support the whole digestive tract and liver cleansing. So it's an excellent addition to an alkaline diet to support and increase that. Let's go take a look at one of the, I'm moving the wrong way here. One of the other contributors to keeping our cells young, and that's to reduce free radicals. Now, we've heard a lot about free radicals, how unstable and reactive they are. We know that they damage cells. It's kind of like a domino effect. One compound is missing an electron and it reaches towards another molecule, destroying it, and then that molecule has to reach to another, and on we go, creating damage to cells and accelerating things like cancer, cardiovascular disease, and all of the age-related diseases. So what we used to call chronic and degenerative diseases are now considered age-related diseases, and they're considered that if we work on the aging of our cells, we actually remove these conditions. So the science is very promising as to how we can reverse our ages. I'm going to talk, once I get through looking at this mitochondrial dysfunction, I'm just going to bring up, just today, I came across an article published, a review article published in February talking about this. So let's take a look at free radicals, but a specific type of free radical called oxygen-free radical, or sometimes you'll see it written ROS. And you might, that's a free radical, but you might not understand that it's actually a form of oxygen that is missing an electron. Very powerful free radical, and it's considered to be responsible for aging changes, and that's because this free radical is found right in our cells' mitochondria. For those of you who might not know what a mitochondria is, if you probably have heard of it, you know that it's the furnace in our cells, and there are many of these tiny little furnaces, thousands of them in every cell, that's responsible for producing our energy. Now, these little organelles that produce our energy, in producing that energy, it's like a furnace. There's a byproduct, and the byproduct are these oxygen-free radicals. And one really good example of them is called superoxide. So these free radicals damage the mitochondria. They'll damage the membrane, and they'll also slow down the ability for the mitochondria to produce the end result, which is ATP, energy. So our energy currency called ATP, the amount of it that can be reduced will be low if we're producing too many of these oxygen free radicals, these ROS, and we can't mop them up. So mopping these up is very important. As a matter of fact, as I was saying, just got my integrative medicine, a clinician's journal. I got my newsletter today, and okay, no, that's not the. I got another one that I'm going to bring up with you, but I'll do this one. I'll do this one from memory. They have now in Japan, they've connected that Alzheimer's is coming from mitochondrial dysfunction. So the mitochondrial dysfunction is when these free radicals are breaking down the mitochondria so that it is an ineffective furnace or destroying it completely. Eventually, when we destroy our mitochondria, or we don't have enough of them, we have cell death or poor function. And the biggest sign of this is low energy. So low energy really fits into the whole process of aging. So this is called mitochondrial dysfunction, and it's responsible for aging. There are more pieces to this, but this to me is such an important piece. I've decided to focus on it. And so when we decrease the free radical generation produced or neutralize that, then we actually have healthy functioning mitochondria and therefore healthy energy. So eating an anti-inflammatory alkaline diet, the very first step, and that's going to involve veggies, herbs, and spices, including things like turmeric and all of your very concentrated, wonderful herbs and spices. Also consuming antioxidant-rich greens, berries, the dark ones again, and supplying enough coenzyme Q10. I'm going to talk about this more in a bit. But coenzyme Q10 is this nutrient. It's not considered a vitamin because the body can produce it, but it tends to decrease with age and also when people take a number of different drugs, mostly when they're taking drugs for their cardiovascular system, including statins, will decrease the amount of coenzyme Q10. And these unhealthy diets and poor sleep will do it as well. Lack of sunlight. So what happens then is we have to supply this coenzyme Q10. And it's been shown that when coenzyme Q10 drops below the adequate amounts, that we can supplement, and this is one of the keys to reversing the aging. Making healthy life choices, of course, and it's exercise, it's reducing the stress and improving the sleep. I mean, things that we all know, but this coenzyme Q10 is quite important. Okay, so I'm going to look at one more area in which aging shows up, and this, you might not have heard of this new term called inflammaging. It's a combination of inflammation, but it's a specific type. It's chronic. It's not like all of a sudden you overdid and twisted your knee and now you have inflammation in your knee. It's a chronic, systemic, meaning all the way through the body. Chronic means ongoing and low grade inflammation process, and it develops as a person advances in their age. So we know that this inflammation now is a strong contributor to many of the age-related symptoms and diseases, and some of the common signs are all the things that we talked about before: declining vision, muscle and bone loss, weakness and strength loss, weight gain and fat gain, we didn't talk about that one, memory problems and brain fog, digestive issues, skin changes, fatigue, low energy, trouble sleeping, looking and feeling older than you are. This can be an inflammaging process that's going on. What causes it again is a high inflammatory diet. So somebody that's not eating the way an alkaline diet, for example. Also sugar imbalances with insulin resistance. We have to think not only about high blood sugar, but about also high insulin, where it's not able to get into the cells. One of the areas that this affects is our hormones. In females, it creates high estrogen or high testosterone. In males, we'll see low testosterone. So there are, of course, many other problems with this, but I want to bring that up. Also, leaky gut can cause inflammation, because and that can be tied especially to things like eating gluten or dairy. Almost everybody is sensitive to these, but some more than others, and poking holes in the digestive tract and getting that inflammation actually into the blood and then eventually into the blood-brain barrier across there. Chronic stress and poor sleep issues, exposure to environmental toxins and EMF. This keeping our body alkaline so we can keep detoxing to get rid of these toxins, really important. Chronic infection, especially mold, if you're exposed to black mold. About a third or just a slight less, if I remember correctly, have a genetic disposition to where mold affects them more than the majority of people. And if you happen to get into mold exposure and do not have the proper genes to detoxify that, it can be really deadly. Also, nutritional deficiencies, especially minerals and antioxidants. Those are the ones. We're not looking here at high protein for longevity. We're looking for medium to low protein, actually. Because protein, too much protein, actually puts us into an anabolic state of growth, and too much growth, bulking up, for example, is counterproductive to health of cells. That might be a little new, but it's quite interesting how the protein is important, of course, but not high protein. High fat, low carb, of course, along the ketogenic type of diet, though it doesn't have to be a complete ketogenesis type situation all the time. So inflammation gives significant risk factors, and I went into chronic diseases in Canadian seniors, and here they were really looking at seniors, not 65 but more close to 85, and the most common ones that affect inflammation would be cardiovascular diseases, osteoarthritis, so wear and tear on the joints, osteoporosis, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, so COPD, and then next would be your dementia, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's. I'll mention at this point, one of this new study that I can't remember if I just told you this or not. Isn't that interesting? Because I've been just doing so much with this over the last day here. With these new my new technical newsletters coming in, they've directly been able to connect mitochondria dysfunction to Alzheimer's. And I think I did mention that to you. Okay, well, I'm excited about it. So let's look at positive aging in the heart. So with the heart disease, in Canada, it's the second leading cause of death. In the world, it's number one. So a big area to be concerned about, and to know that it is actually an age-related disease, and that we can do something about this. So first of all, we can protect ourselves from it, and then there are even abilities, if we take the proper nutrients, to affect our outcome once you have a cardiovascular incident. So I've used the term heart disease because if you go through the literature, you'll find, depending on where you're looking, it'll be called many different things. You might see it called cardiovascular disease. So we're just equating right now heart disease as a big umbrella, or cardiovascular disease as a big umbrella, and that would include coronary artery disease, where you get clogged arteries, and then of course and when the arteries are blocked, it's stroke, heart attacks or myocardial infarction, congestive heart failure, and angina, which is lack of oxygen into the heart muscle, and chest pain. Also, there are about 5 different types of arrhythmias and much more. So we're just going to lump these all together for the purposes of creating healthy cells. And so we do know that the risk of heart disease can be significantly reduced, even though it seems as if, it's inevitable. It's not inevitable. Here are some of the things that we know you absolutely can do for the heart, and that is mitochondrial support. So why would we need to support the mitochondria? Because remember, these mitochondria are found in every cell, but in high energy needing cells that really need a lot of energy, like heart muscle cells and our brain, these are dense with mitochondria. And so if there's a dysfunction in our mitochondria, if there's damage, that means our heart muscle's not going to work as effectively. So it's considered the hallmark of cardiovascular disease and actually other other types of diseases of aging. So as I mentioned before, mitochondrial dysfunction can be reversed. And here are two really unique substances that work with it. I've already talked a bit about coenzyme Q10, but there's also PQQ. Now, PQQ I'll bring up again. Lori, could you mute, please, sweetie? Just to cut the background noise out. So PQQ is pyrroloquinone. And this particular little substance is available in the diet in small quantities. It's a vitamin-like substance because the body doesn't produce it. I think it eventually will be considered called a vitamin. And just like vitamin B's, the recommended daily allowance is in micrograms, but we take milligrams of them. It's the same with this substance. And that works really well together with coenzyme Q10 in protecting the mitochondria and supplying energy to the heart muscle by working with the mitochondria. Matter of fact, the CoQ10 is absolutely crucial to produce these electrons through the electron transport chain to fire up production of our ATP. So it's the key nutrient, and we do find that when individuals who are low in their energy have cardiovascular issues, and they measure their coenzyme Q10 and then they bring it up, it actually increases their energy and increases the mitochondria found in their heart muscle cell. So also the PQQ is known to generate new mitochondria. This is called mitochondrial biogenesis. And so it is one of the few nutrients that we know that can actually make more. So between making more and mitochondria and supplying the energy, we just have a magic duo. And other things that it does is modulate cellular signaling pathways. This is how cells talk to each other. It also neutralizes those ROS, those reactive oxygen free radicals we talked about, and in general supports optimal mitochondrial function. So together, they also have improved cognitive performance, such as attention and information processing. Now the Alzheimer's thing that I spoke about has been shown in Japanese studies, the cardiovascular system, and just general mitochondrial support. So if you're supporting your mitochondria, that means that your cells are able to produce enough energy and function properly more. And let's take a look at Prairie's solution to this, which is NeuroForce. So this is one of our newest products. We're very pleased to offer a combination of CoQ10 and coenzyme Q10 and PQQ, along with the bioactive form of B6, which is called, of all things, P5P, and then a phosphatidylcholine, high phosphatidylcholine form of lecithin. Now, this combination is unique in the sense that the PQQ is at quite a high dose. Well, this is flipped over here. So it's a 2 capsule a day it needs to be taken with meals containing fat. That's the best way to get coenzyme Q10 absorbed. You'll notice that it's a ubiquinone variety, and this is the other thing that I wanted to bring to your attention. When we were looking at bringing this formula on and using the ubiquinone form, I still had in the back of my mind that ubiquinol might be more absorbable. So I went back into the literature, which I hadn't looked at for a couple of years or so, and lo and behold, I'm finding that the latest literature, and I got one just today in this this Integrated Medical Clinicians Journal, showing that that there were 2 studies done where ubiquinol seems to be oxidized. So even though ubiquinol, if you take this ubiquinol form, no matter you think you're taking a more absorbable form, but most of it is oxidized into the ubiquinone before it's absorbed, and that within the body, our body can easily transfer, depending on where it needs ubiquinone and where it needs the ubiquinol, it can transfer it back and forth in order to utilize both forms. So no longer do we need to go to the more expensive ubiquinol. What we do need to make sure is that we get it absorbed. So remember, most of it's going to be transferred into ubiquinone anyway before it passes. When it's in a alkaline pH of the small intestine, where most everything's absorbed, it's fat soluble, and that's why we've got the high phosphatidylcholine, because what we're doing here is using this to help emulsify the ubiquinone and coat it in such a way, along with the fat digestion, to carry it across the intestinal lining of the small intestine where it should be absorbed. So when you eat fat and you've got either good fat digestion or good bile function, bile also is an emulsifier, but the addition of this phosphatidylcholine ensures that we're getting it absorbed. So 2 capsules a day with fatty meal. The P5P is also a great addition because it helps the body to actually produce more ubiquinone. So that's why it's within the body. Okay, so I hope that's helpful. If there are any questions afterward, I'm certainly willing. Oh, we have one more person coming in. I'm certainly willing to talk about it, but it's quite exciting to know that the ubiquinone is as effective as ubiquinol. Let's move on and take a look at the brain and cognitive wellness as our second priority, because of course, if we're it's one thing that our skin is wrinkling, but it's another thing if we start to lose our memory. And we now know that there are a number of substances that support cognitive wellness and also brain performance, and these are called nootropics. And there are a number of them that are in our food, and I would actually consider these, especially these fat-soluble nutrients, to be at the very basis of what everyone really needs to do in order to ensure that their very fat, heavy fat content brain has enough of the nutrients that it needs, and that would include vitamin D and vitamin K. And with my latest research, it's showing that we really need the average person to keep their blood levels at an optimal level, not just the base level, but optimum level for protection and for all the functions that the vitamin D does, but also protecting our immune system, we need roughly 10,000 IUs. And we need to match that, and that I should have put here K2. I'll have to get a K2 in here, because even though K1 is valuable, it's really K2 that works with vitamin D to help calcium both get absorbed. That's what the vitamin D does, and then calcify in proper places like the bone. We don't want it calcifying in the arteries. There's so much more that K2 does. So the ratio is, for, I would say, roughly for every 5,000 IUs of vitamin D one takes, take 100 microgram K2, and that's a twice a day with meals with fat. And of course, we need our omega-3s, especially DHA for the brain, but omega-3s. So these are all our fat-soluble nutrients that we need to make sure that we're taking and we're absorbing. Unless you're eating a good serving of salmon twice a week, herring, mackerel, there's another one, very oily, clean fish, you're not going to get enough omegas from food. So a good omega supplement is also helpful. And then the amino acid L-tyrosine, which we know is used to make our thyroid hormone, T4, but T3, T4, but it's also involved as a precursor in the process of making other neurotransmitters. So important. 5-HTP, 5-hydroxytryptophan is the second step in moving towards making serotonin. The next step is serotonin, and then this little amine creatine, which is also really valuable especially for vegans who are not consuming, of course, meat, which is where the highest source of this is from our diet. Supplements, the antioxidant astaxanthin is really valuable. Alpha GPC, which is glycerol phosphorylcholine, so we're going to look at that. And of course, PQQ, remember it was heart and brain. In the herbs, ginkgo biloba, tried and true, it's still in there, really improving brain circulation amongst many other things. We're going to look at this Ayurvedic herb, though, Bacapa monieri. We can't forget in the nutraceuticals the resveratrol, originally from red wine, but you can't get enough of it unless you drink about 100 glasses of red wine a day. So we're really looking at supplementation with resveratrol. Somewhere between 500 and 1,000 milligrams a day is really very effective, both for the brain and for longevity. Vinpocetine, I can't forget, I will bring up this little tiny plant extract from the periwinkle. I'll bring it up a little bit more. And then there are nootropic foods: chocolate, green tea, coffee, MCT oil. So this is where the butter coffee comes in, where you use ghee and MCT oil and really get these high antioxidants absorbed. So, and there are more functional foods that affect the these are key. So here's how they're thought to work. By the way, this is the end of a neuron. So this is the neuron synapse here, where, let's say, the neurotransmitter serotonin is crossing the synaptic cleft and going into the next neuron and producing calm, peaceful, and focused energy. So nootropics can help in a number of ways to create these neurotransmitter functions within our brain, and they do that by increasing circulation, supplying oxygen and energy through the mitochondria. into these the mitochondria and these neurons, these nerve cells. Also, they're stimulating the growth of them and the function, and they're protecting them from damage. So we want neurons to be healthy. We want them to be producing neurotransmitters. We want them to have lots of oxygen and energy happening. One product that can help with that is Prairie Naturals NeuroForce. So NeuroForce has a number of these active ingredients that are all known to help with our both performance, our focus, and energy to the brain. So I've already talked about PQQ, the pyrroloquinone, and how it's working through the mitochondria and the production. And it's been shown to support age-related brain conditions. So this one, along with the CoQ10 in the CardioForce, work for the heart, and in this formula it's put in there to support brain health, along with a really good supply of GPC, which is it's the choline here. It's a very active form of choline, which is one of the building blocks, or what we call a precursor to acetylcholine. Now, acetylcholine is a neat little neurotransmitter. It does many different things, but two of the things it does is help store and recall memory. So it makes our memory better, and it's also responsible for short-term energy. I used to use a form of choline found in lecithin, and I'd have to take copious amounts of it if I was playing bridge all night. Often we played bridge to 4 o'clock, pre-children, when we were just, university graduates with our university graduate friends. We would play bridge, and if I was going to stay awake, because I didn't drink coffee in those days, I would take copious amounts of lecithin capsules at my supper, and I would find I'd get enough choline in my brain to keep me going. That was my first. Now that would have been, I did that in my early 20s, so that would have been a good 50 years ago. I was trying to figure out how to improve brain performance. So I'm pretty excited about what's been going on these days. Another Ayurvedic herb called water hyssop or Bacapa monnieri. It's found in planters' boxes. It's the trailing little white flower. And the extract from this has a substance called bacosides. Bacosides, and sorry about that. And they're concentrated. And what we find is when we concentrate this extract and give it, it helps the communication between neurons, that cellular communication, right? And facilitates the growth of these ends of these nerves that are needed to make the neuron net, the connection between our neurons. Also shown to improve memory in both healthy people and those with cognitive decline. This formula, NeuroForce, that Prairie Naturals has, can be used for individuals that have, are elderly and notice a decline, or even those that are more in their 20s and 30s and they're studying, they've got a very high intense job and they find they need more brain power. It's usually a once to twice a day formula. The PQQ is a bit lower here, but it's still in the micrograms and in the therapeutic dose range. So this particular formula also has vinpocetine, which I've not mentioned, but I want to bring this up because Prairie has a vinpocetine 15 milligrams. Here it's just a synergistically added small amount. But in that 15 milligram capsule, it's used to improve circulation in the brain. It's very specific for circulation in the brain. And it seems to be helping people with ringing in their ears. About 50% of people with ringing in their ears seem to be responding to vinpocetine. And we have some stores in the East that buy it by large quantities because it's been so effective. So I just wanted to let you know that, because there's not much on the market that you can use to help people who have vestibular issues and ringing in the ears, even balance issues. It's worth trying. And it's a 15 milligram twice. It's a 30 to 60 milligram dose, actually. And we have the highest milligram per capsule product on the market at 15. Okay, I wanted to bring that up because I find that quite exciting, that there's some way to help people with issues with ringing in their ears, which is a very devastating condition if you have it. We need to take a look at digestion amongst many other things yet on this list. So sorry, I went too far here. Really, my key point on digestion is that digestion starts with good stomach acid. Unfortunately, some people can't obtain that. They can't get, they either have H. pylori infection, they have inflammation in the lining of the stomach, or they're on acid-reducing drugs. So when you can't increase your digestion by starting with good stomach acid, the thing to do is to add a full spectrum enzyme blend. Because you won't be, if you don't have stomach acid properly in a high level to start the digestive process, you won't have good production of your natural enzymes to digest your food. So adding this in can really help support your body in freeing up the macronutrients and the micronutrients from your food and allowing them to be absorbed and not lost in your fecal matter in the toilet. So you want a good protein digesting blend, you want a good carbohydrate digesting blend, and you want fat digesting enzyme as well, and also fiber digesting to free up from the fibrous cells all of those alkaline minerals and nutrients caught. And of course you want your enzyme to be non-GMO, gluten-free, and vegan. And these enzymes are taken right at the beginning of a meal. At Prairie, we have a very popular, very effective enzyme called NeuroForce. So I would just like to bring up that also if you have fat digesting issue, we have a complementary one to this that I also formulated called Bile Force. And that enzyme is great if you're on a high fat diet and having trouble. This one will do an average amount of fat, but if you're on a very high fat diet and you want to get those nutrients absorbed, Bile Force can be really helpful. Okay, just moving on, I would like to bring up hair loss because, and this is something we're starting to see more post sort of COVID and with stress, a lot of people losing their hair, women being very upset that their hair is falling out and it's thinning. So adequate nutrition, but with high levels of stress, we can see more hair loss. It might even be an effect from having the virus. So Hair Force, which is one of our first products that we've made, still is such an amazing seller. Not because it replaces male pattern baldness type hair loss, but it will nourish and thicken hair, nourish the hair follicle, and it provides all of the nutrients. And I've just listed everything here that is needed to support hair growth. And the Hair Force has this supply with the right type of minerals that are adequately absorbed, along with high levels, I'll point out, of pantothenic acid and also biotin. We have a separate where is that biotin? Here, we have a separate biotin, but this is a large amount of biotin, and between the vitamins, and especially the B vitamins, which really will support stress as well. So reducing stress, nourishing the hair follicle. And then, of course, if you use forms of collagen to support proper hair growth. Another area that people have concerns about, of course, is their healthy vision. And we want to protect our eyes from excessive radiation. Most of the time when I'm on my computer, I wear my glasses, but I'll show you. If I put them on, you probably see the blue tinge, which protects me from the radiation, the blue light coming off screens. We also need to balance sugar. If a person has a high sugar diet, they're very quickly going to see cataracts. Cataracts shouldn't develop in our eyes unless glycation is happening, which is the combination of free radicals in the combining protein and sugars together and crystallizing. Also glaucoma, which affects the optic nerve, but the most important one is that people want to protect their retina from is age-related macular degeneration, which is the breakdown of the retina by which is the light-sensitive tissue where we actually have our major vision and central vision. So we know that through the AIRD studies that have been done, that vitamin C, vitamin E, zinc, beta carotene, copper, and selenium have all been shown to work. And actually, lutein and zeaxanthin, or the lutein, have been also studied, but some other things that haven't been well studied is the amino acid L-taurine. And this is a naturally occurring amino acid that's needed and found in concentrated amounts in the eye. So very important for the function of our sight. Also the dark blueberry extracts. What they have found in those is that they have this C3G, or cyanidin 3 glycoside, and you need about a 50 milligrams with 10% of this C3G in it. That's what studies have shown. So when I put together AcuForce, I added the taurine in good dosage. That's a good amount for getting it into the brain. I've also added a strong blackcurrant extract to get the 10% C3CG, as well as a dark berry blend to catch, and the astaxanthins in here, as well as most of all of what else has been shown to work, and a non-GMO vitamin E mixed tocopherol focused on gamma tocopherol. I don't take a separate vitamin E. I don't need it. This amount that I find in two AcuForce, which is 150 IUs, with the in 82 milligrams of the gamma. This is the most active, bioavailable, the type of vitamin E that we find in our food, if we were able to get it from our food. So this is, I find, an excellent combination along with this at 2 a day to support a good ocular vision and protect the retina. The last part to talk about is with men's health, is how there's a direct connection between low testosterone and low male virility, which for males affects so many areas of their body, including their muscle mass. And what's really important with testosterone is not just to have testosterone total, which is what a blood test can tell, but to have also high free testosterone. And what we find is, you see, we don't want to go below about 350 or 300. And as you can see how it dips, that the actual amount of free testosterone dips faster than the total. Usually doctors will just measure the total. So what's making this free testosterone, which is the active form, lower? Well, it can bind to a protein in the blood called sex hormone binding globulin. It can be converted to estrogen in the fat cells, which then make more fat cells, or free testosterone can also be converted to a much more toxic type of testosterone called dihydrotestosterone. So there are a number of wonderful natural nutrients, including herbs and vitamins, that are effective in supporting the body as natural inhibitors of the dihydrotestosterone, both saw pimento and stinging nettle root. It has to be a root extract, has to be actually a very specific root extract, which we have put in our NeuroForce formula, so that we actually extract from the root these 4 polysaccharides, which inhibit the prostate cell growth, but it also inhibits dihydrotestosterone and blocks the binding of testosterone to that serum protein, the globulin here. So what's this going to do? So it's going to sort of help the prostate in not enlarging and forming benign prostatic hyperplasia, which is the BPH, the condition. But it's also going to stop this dihydrotestosterone, and that affects much more than the prostate. That stops male pattern baldness, or it can help decrease it. It stops the acne that younger males get from having such a high amount of testosterone, then being converted to dihydro. It also stops the little tire around the middle. A good combination to stop that is to use NeuroForce along with cutting out alcohol, because alcohol increases estrogen. So if you by inhibiting the liver from excreting it. So if you stop that glass of wine at night and take 2 NeuroForce and continue your exercise, you just might find you quickly can drop that tire, that estrogen fat around the middle. It's not that big bear belly. It's that fluffy fat around the middle that women also get. And what helps that also is B6 and zinc. Now, B6 and zinc in women, along with magnesium, really valuable for producing progesterone. B6 and zinc for men help produce testosterone in the testes. But they also minimize prolactin levels. Now, prolactin, if it's increased, it converts the testosterone to dihydro, enlarging the prostate. So this B6 zinc combination is really valuable to support all over men's health, along with the herb saw pimento and stinging nettle, and others as well that are combined in NeuroForce. But I picked these 3 because I really felt that as a combination of these 3, they're very effective. So those are the 7 sort of ways in which a person can choose to support reduction in the aging areas. I'd like to really end by saying that biological aging is influenced by a number of factors, as I've mentioned, but 2 key ones to keep in mind. And the first ones, if somebody's looking at what can they do, is to look at their nutritional intake. Up their nutritional intake by having an anti-inflammatory, high alkaline forming food diet, and making sure your nutrients are being absorbed. Remember, you can do the pH test to see if you're getting those minerals in your body. And you can go to my website, which you'll see here in a minute, to be able to find out how to properly do those tests and to get the alkaline forming food chart. So you want those properly alkaline minerals and buffers, and that would be the place where I would start. And then remember that Prairie offers these healthy choices that can positively influence areas or areas in your life where you see that you're aging faster than you want to. So, of course, the alkaline supplements and all of our superfood powders that we have, which are wonderful additions into Morning Rise and Shine. You can really mix and make yourself a very alkalizing morning superfood drink. Fat and water soluble antioxidants and omega-3 fats. And we've talked about those a lot. Condition-specific formulas like the CardioForce or the NeuroForce. And then also the digestive aids and enzymes that we have to help you make sure that you are absorbing your nutrients. So I'd like to thank you for hanging in with me to hear this beginning of developing the information that can support us in having a very positive, healthy aging. And of course, Prairie Naturals, please connect with Prairie Naturals on Facebook, Instagram. We're very active, or through their website, and look at our upcoming events, usually with me, but also different contests and things. And here's my website. So holistic-pharmacist.com. If you go to articles and pH, you can get that information to help you look at the alkaline forming foods that you want to focus on, how to properly do your pH, and then under the digestive section, you can test your stomach acid to see if you need to take digestive enzymes. So there we go. I am going to check now to see if there are any questions. Let me see if I can get to the chat. There it is. There's a few things there. Okay, Beverly, thank you. And thank you, Janine. That was great. Great. Just a group of appreciation, gratitudes. Always love gratitude. It's a good thing. Thank you, Darlene. Anybody have anything that came up for them that I might help you with? Kim, yeah, I'm getting lots of people stayed with me. It's wonderful. You're going to see more from Prairie Naturals as I continue to research. We're looking at expanding. Yeah, thank you, Kathy. Thanks for organizing this, everybody at Optimum. We much appreciate your support. And remember that all of these products are available at Optimum Health, and there's coupons right now. They're all featured. So it's a good place to go and get your supplements. So Linda's asked, is there a female hormonal support supplement akin to Prost support? Not exactly. We at Prairie found that there was a gap with men's health. So many other women or so many other supplement companies were focused on the women. We did focus on the men. But I will give you a couple of hints. One is what I already mentioned, magnesium, B6, and zinc. Absolutely necessary to produce progesterone and to balance out estrogen dominance during the productive years. There's articles on my website, by the way, that are valuable. And also, women can take Prosforce. Actually, so it's not strictly for men. Just let me see. There was something else I wanted to say about that. Because I have a number of articles on my website. I did a lot of work with women's hormonal health 20 some years ago when I was going through menopause. So you'll find quite a few articles on there on how to work with estrogen dominance, how to keep down the stress level. Morning, rise and shine. Don't want to miss these. Yes, a question came in, is morning, rise and shine the same formula as electrolyte fuel? Exactly. It is. We wanted to emphasize the electrolyte part and to get it more into sports because we found that it's such a good formula for an electrolyte. The only thing, as I mentioned, and this really, all the electrolyte formulas that I saw, none of them have enough sodium if a person is perspiring, because you lose more sodium than anything. You lose about a teaspoon every hour if you're profusely perspiring through heat and or exercise. So you want to replace the salt. So I suggest taking salt. I usually tell a person, put it here, have your morning rise and shine, put your salt here, down it, and then drink. Don't ever take salt or a salt brine solution without copious amounts of fluid and your other electrolytes to balance it. So that would be the only thing, because if I put enough salt in there, it would taste too salty. Most people wouldn't be able to handle it. The highest element in there is potassium, then magnesium, then calcium, and then sodium. So that's why you would need to add more salt. It's also a reason for the 8th cranial nerve is also a reason for tinnitus. According to Dr. Berg, to try this has been posted since 2005. That's a long time. And somebody's working quite intuitively. Yes, NeuroForce, but NeuroForce itself does not have enough vinpocetine. So that's why I bring up this separate vinpocetine, because the dosages used are between 30 and 60 milligrams. Now, we have a 15 milligram capsule that's the highest one, I think, on the Canadian market. So you can, it would be between 2 and 4. I would start with 2. I actually just recently tried somebody on that. It took about a month at 2 a day. Remember, these are it's in a fat soluble gel capsule, so you want to make sure that you're taking it with food. Okay, so here's some more. Oh yes, by the way, you are going to get a link to this training. This presentation, and that will go, I think everybody gave their email. You will get a copy of the PowerPoint as well as a link to the video. Can AcuForce reverse some early cataract development? I would say no, because that's like a welding process that's happened. So if cataracts have developed, it's because blood sugar's been out of balance, and it has, with a lot of free radical damage present, and it has actually fused the glycone or the sugar part onto the protein or the amino acids. That's called a glycation process, and that's not reversible, but it's preventable, or you can stop the progression of. Although, and also, I just pulled off a research article that shows people who have cataracts and don't have them removed have more cognitive issues. There's a correlation between increased onset of neurodegenerative diseases with people that have cataracts that they don't have them removed. So just be aware that the surgery can support brain health. This is what it looks like. It's quite amazing. And I could see that happening because if you're blocking your vision, you're blocking your brain function. So good to work from the outside in and the inside out on wanting to see clearly, right? Creating clear vision, and make sure you don't have any blockages to that. Okay, I think we're finished for the night. Everybody good? You're almost all still with me. Thank you. It's been wonderful. I look forward to coming back to Optimum and I usually do 1 or 2 a year supportive seminars like this. So please keep in touch with Optimum, and also keep in touch with the Prairie website for my upcoming events. And remember to connect with me through Linktree or through my website. Thank you so much, everyone. I very much appreciate you being with us. Good night.